Have you ever been involved in a project maybe, or just, using some app daily, and suddenly it just goes completely sideways, like a critical system gets hacked, and not because of some obvious coding bug, but something deeper, like a flaw in the actual design. It often feels like someone forgot to really check the blueprint. So today we're taking a deep dive into something that's really becoming that crucial blueprint in cybersecurity: threat modeling. Our mission really is to unpack this skill. It's super impactful, but sometimes maybe a bit underrated. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding why it's not just like nice to have, but really essential now.
That's a great way to put it. The blueprint analogy works really well. Think about an architect, right? They try to figure out where a building might fail before they even lay the first brick. A threat modeler does basically the same thing, but for digital systems. Predicting where it might get hacked before it's live. It's all about being proactive, getting away from just reacting and patching, and instead anticipating problems way earlier in the design itself.
Right, proactive. So what does that really mean for how secure a company is? I mean, attacks are changing so fast. Organizations, they just can't keep playing catch up, can they? They need people who can actually think like an attacker, people who can see those potential issues way, way before they become, disasters. It's about baking security right from the start.
Exactly. So when we ask what is threat modeling, we're talking about that specific phase
Yeah.
where you deliberately, proactively look for potential weaknesses. You try to predict the exact paths an attacker might take through the system. And then you recommend specific, strong defenses. It's got this dual nature, you see. It's technical, definitely. You need to understand systems. But it's also super strategic, analytical. And that's what makes it so valuable. It forces you to think about the whole attack life cycle, not just fixing one bug here or there, that bigger picture view. That's where the real value is.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting for you listening. Think about all the digital stuff you use every day. The benefits are huge, right? The source material really hammered this home. Good threat modeling can literally save companies millions.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Millions in breach damage because you stop the attack before it even starts.
So like a big payment system adds a new feature. Without threat modeling, maybe they accidentally open up some subtle way in through an API.
Right.
But if they threat model it during design, they could spot that vulnerability, save themselves potentially tens of millions later on. Fines, cleanup, reputation, all that mess.
It's the ultimate ounce of prevention. Absolutely. Avoids the whole disaster scenario before a single line of that vulnerable code is even written. And it applies everywhere. It's not just for, say, banks. It's critical for a fintech app, sure, handling money, but also an e-commerce site processing tons of orders, or even like a government defense system. Really sensitive stuff. The core idea is systematically finding weak spots, predicting attack routes. They work across all these different industries. That makes the skill incredibly versatile and, yeah, very much in demand.
That makes sense. If it's that universal, then yeah, the career paths must be pretty broad. I was actually quite interested in what the material said about getting into it. It sort of pushes back against that idea that you need like 10 years under your belt first.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Look, deep experience always helps, no question. But the core skills, that analytical thinking, being able to break down something complex, you can definitely learn and practice those. You don't always need that massive prior experience just to get started. Get the right training, find a good place to practice, and you could be looking at roles like security architect, designing security in from the start, or a threat intelligence analyst using modeling to understand attack trends, application security engineer, building secure code.
Consultant roles too, I imagine.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity consultant advising companies, or even DevSecOps engineer weaving security right into the development pipeline. That whole 10 years experience needed thing.
Yeah.
It's often not the barrier people think it is for threat modeling specifically.
Okay, that's really encouraging. So practically speaking then, what skills are we talking about? If someone's thinking, okay, I want to do this, what does reading and interpreting complex system architectures actually involve? And what tools or methods do people actually use day to day?
Well, you're basically learning to become a detective for systems. You map out how everything connects, identify the key parts, see how data flows between them, figure out the trust boundaries. Those are crucial, like where data crosses from a less secure zone to a more secure one. You even need to think about people sometimes. Insider threats, maybe.
Right, the human element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to help visualize all this, there are tools. Microsoft has its threat modeling tool, often called TMT. There are open source ones too, like OWASP Threat Dragon. They help you draw diagrams of the architecture, the data flows, the security bits. Then you need a structured way to actually find the threats. That's where frameworks come in. STRIDE is a classic one.
Stride. What's that stand for?
It's an acronym. Helps you remember categories of threats: spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. It forces you to look for different kinds of problems systematically. There's also PASTA process for attack simulation and threat analysis. That one's more risk-focused, goes through about 7 steps. These frameworks just give you a method, a process, so you don't miss things.
Okay, so it sounds very analytical, like putting together a complex puzzle. But is it something you do alone, just like staring at diagrams in a dark room? Or is it more collaborative?
Oh, definitely collaborative. Hugely collaborative, actually. A massive part of the job is working well with other teams, developers especially. You find these potential risks, these insights, but then you've got to communicate them effectively. You'll often lead discussions, explain the risks, talk through ways to fix them. You work with the developers on secure coding, with architects on refining designs.
And operations teams too, presumably.
Yeah, with operations to make sure things are deployed securely. It really bridges the gap between security theory and, what actually gets built and run. It's very cross-functional.
Makes sense. So thinking about careers again, if someone's maybe in cybersecurity already or wants to pivot, who really gets the most out of mastering this skill? Beyond those specific job titles, it seems like it would just make you better at almost any security role.
I think so, yeah. If you're, say, an ethical hacker used to finding bugs, threat modeling gives you that defensive perspective, how to prevent the bugs in the first place. That's a powerful shift. For students wanting to get into security architecture, it's foundational stuff. And we see lots of people from QA or development or IT operations looking to move into security. Threat modeling is a really strong, impactful way to make that jump. And building on what you said, think about bug bounty hunters or red teamers.
Yeah.
If you understand threat modeling, you understand how systems are supposed to work and where design weaknesses might lie. It gives you a much deeper, more strategic way to find vulnerabilities when you're attacking. It's not just about running tools, it's about understanding the blueprint.
Okay, wrapping things up then for this deep dive. It feels crystal clear that threat modeling isn't just like an optional extra anymore. It really seems essential. Essential for anyone wanting a solid, future-proof career in cybersecurity, and for building systems that are actually resilient from the ground up. The core idea seems simple, but powerful. Learn to think like they attack so you can build stronger defenses.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave people with. Threats are always changing, getting smarter. So what does it really mean for the future if we genuinely shift our main focus away from just reacting after the fact towards predicting and preventing? How could that fundamentally change what we even mean by security? Moving beyond just walls and guards towards, inherently safer designs.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely something to think about.